Hello. In this video, we're going to take a look at studying animal behavior. Why do we study animal behavior, and how do we go about studying it? And let's move into our PowerPoint presentation on that. Okay, so let's take a look at, in this video, why do we study animal behavior? Why is it important to study animal behavior? And then we'll move into parts 2 and 3 when we focus on how do we study animal behavior and what techniques do we use. And remember, we're just finishing understanding evolution. This class focuses on the evolution of social behavior in animals. So we've learned a little bit about evolution. And now we're thinking about why study animals. And then we'll move into actually focusing on some of these questions about social behavior in animals and their evolution. So let's ask the first question. Why do we need to study animal behavior, particularly animal social behavior? And animals can include humans, of course, because humans are a type of animal. But we're going to focus on primarily non-humans. We'll go back and forth a little bit in this course. So why do we study animals? Let's come up with a list of reasons for why we study animals. So I've got at least 5 reasons, and I guess I will just roll through them. One of the reasons is as a substitute for humans. So we could say it's a substitute for humans. We can't always study humans when we are asking a particular research question because, frankly, it's not ethical sometimes. So you'll be learning a little bit more about prairie voles and their interesting pair bonding behavior in a group assignment you'll be doing. But prairie voles are really kind of fascinating. The males and females form pair bonds. They're kind of like little hamster-like creatures, okay? And the question that researchers have is, well, what is it that enables these prairie voles to form such strong pair bonds or attachments to each other? And researchers have looked at the neurotransmitter dopamine and its effect in female voles on that pair bonding process. And in order to understand how this neurotransmitter has an effect, researchers can manipulate it. They can change the amount of neurotransmitter in the female prairie vole, or they can change the amount of receptors that are found in the prairie vole and ask the question, how does that affect prairie vole behavior, right? That's something you can't do in humans. Here's another example. Back in the 1960s, a researcher named Harlow and others decided to study rhesus monkeys, and you've probably heard about this study. It's also found in our textbook by Sarah Hardy on pages 398, 399, if you're interested in learning more about this study. Back in the 60s, like I said, researchers decided to look at rhesus monkeys and ask the question, what do they prefer what do they cling to? What do they prefer as a mother if they don't have a live mother? And they set up the monkeys with a choice between a wire mom, if you will, with a milk bottle, and a terry cloth, soft doll-like mom. And the rhesus monkey babies spent a little bit of time drinking milk, and then most of their time clinging to those terry cloth moms, something that feels like a real mom to them, if you will. This is clearly a study that it might not even happen in today's world, frankly, because of ethical issues using rhesus monkeys. But it certainly couldn't happen with humans, obviously. So sometimes we use animals as a substitute for humans. Other times we study animals because it's important. Animals have practical or economic importance. So I'm going to write down practical or economic importance. So, for example, animals have a major impact on humans. Domestic animals are very important to humans. Everything from cattle and pigs and all of our farm animals to our pets. They're really important to us, and we need to understand them and understand how best to treat them in order to, in order for them to help us and for us to help them, if you will. We have pets, and there's a huge research now on humans and pets and how they interact, how they've evolved together, because pets are really important in our lives. There are also other important economic reasons to study animals. A lot of animals are pests to humans. They cause plagues. Insects destroy our crops. Rats and carry disease. Ticks carry disease. And understanding animals helps us in the long run. Finally, in this practical economic example, would be ecotourism. Understanding the requirements, the habitat needs of individual animals will enable humans to provide those needs and support themselves economically with ecotourism, for example. This kind of fits in with part number 3, conservation. In order to conserve the animal populations in our world, we have to understand them. And we have to understand their habitat requirements, their social requirements. So in order to understand elephants or water buffalo or lions or cheetahs, we need to understand what they need, and that includes their social needs, right? So for conservation issues. D, for comparisons to human. It's a little bit different than as a substitute, but for comparisons to humans. Let me give you an example here. It's to better understand our behavior and the evolution of our behavior, we might want to understand an animal's behavior or the evolution of that behavior in that animal, all right? So if we understand animals, we might better understand ourselves. There's a really good example of that in our Mother Nature textbook as well. And this example comes from pages 161 plus. So I'm just turning to it now. It starts out here and it says infant sharers. Well, it turns out that lots of animals have what's called infant sharing. Mom will pass around a baby to allo mothers, other mothers in their group. And so mom isn't always the one taking care of baby. And that's true of humans too, right? Humans use allo mothers all the time. But it's kind of interesting to understand and look at different species and their use of allo mothers, because it can help us understand that some of the differences we see in humans. So for example, chimpanzee mothers very rarely pass their infants around. And this probably stems from the fact that it's very risky for them to pass their infants around. Infant chimps are sometimes killed by other members in their group. And it turns out that mom is not typically closely related to the rest of the group. Moms live with individuals who are not their close relatives. And when mom passes around a chimp, it's possible that chimp, the infant, will be killed. Langur monkeys that live in India, on the other hand, are classic infant sharers, if you will. They live in small groups with a single breeding male and a bunch of closely related females. And they spend about, apparently, infants spend about 50% of their day with an allo mother. So moms pass their infants around all the time, but it's safe because we think because the moms share this group with all sorts of relatives. close relatives. So they're less likely to kill off an infant. Okay? Now, human societies and cultures, we see a lot of variation in infant sharing when we look back at ancient cultures or today's culture. Sometimes we have lots of allo mothers. We put our kids in daycare. We give our kids to relatives to hang on to while we're working. Well, guess what? It depends on the culture. The amount of allo care that's happened depends on the culture. So, what kind of groups is mom in? Is she in a group with a lot of relatives that are close relatives that are in her same group, or is she in a group of strangers, non-relatives? That matters. That affects how much allo care infants get. Another thing to think about is the type of work that mom needs to do. Do moms have to travel a lot, have to spend a big part of their day gathering food? If they do, there's more allo care. So it's kind of interesting to compare human behaviors to other animal behaviors and think about why in certain human cultures there are some differences. Now, that may relate to the makeup of the group. It may relate to the work that that females have to do in this particular group. It may relate to the very specifics of their society, just like it does in different animal species. And then there's at least one more. I put it down as curiosity or simply interest. Or interest in learning, or interested in learning about animals and about the evolution of their behaviors. And that's no surprise. Humans have been selected to be interested in the world around us. That's a good thing, right? We need to pay attention to the world around us. That's probably why our ancestors survived and thrived. And now we have that in us. We are interested. We're curious about other animals and what they're doing and how they evolved and what their social behaviors look like. It's exciting for us to learn new things. And so those are the primary reasons that we do study animals and that we're interested in social behavior in animals, in this class in particular. So that's it for now. I'll move to the next video soon.